Picture this, it's 1919, and baseball games are so boring that fans are literally falling asleep in the stands. So what does MLB do? They juice the baseballs and suddenly everyone's hitting home runs like they're playing softball. Fast forward a few decades, and players are hitting so many home runs that people get suspicious about why everyone looks like they could bench press a car. This is the story of how baseball kept fixing itself into new disasters for over a century. The dead ball era. From 1900 to 1919, baseball had a serious problem that nobody wanted to admit. Welcome to the dead ball era, where excitement went to die and fans brought newspapers to read during the action. The solution was brilliantly stupid. They left balls in play for over 100 pitches, let pitchers scuff and spit on them, and even counted foul balls as strikes, so hitting was virtually impossible. A single baseball would often stay in the game until it was soft and literally tearing apart. Pitchers could apply substances like spit, mud, or even tobacco juice to make the ball move like drunken butterflies through the air. They also had a larger strike zone to work with, creating a pitching-dominated environment that made modern pitchers' duels look exciting. Ty Cobb became the poster child for this era by playing baseball like he was settling personal vendettas. He stole bases with the fury of a man who'd been personally wronged by second base. Cobb amassed 897 stolen bases in his career and maintained a career batting average of 366, one of the highest in MLB history. Meanwhile, Walter Johnson was racking up 417 career wins, cementing pitchers' complete dominance over the game. Cobb was also known for his intense competitiveness and often violent behavior on the field, which perfectly matched the era's aggressive style. Games averaged 3.4 runs total, making modern pitchers' duels look like home run derbies by comparison. This was the lowest scoring average in MLB history. Home runs during this era were extremely rare, as were base hits in general. The emphasis was on strategy, speed, and the athletes who could master these skills rather than power hitting. Baseball salaries were so low that having a day job wasn't optional. Players earned significantly less than they do today, and often supplemented their income with off-season jobs. The reserve clause bound players to their teams, and the idea of free agency was still decades away. The strategy was simple: bunt, steal, and pray someone accidentally hit the ball more than 200 feet. Games were decided by bunts, singles, and stolen bases rather than power hitting. Players like Honus Wagner and Tris Speaker joined Cobb in emphasizing getting on base and utilizing speed to score runs. Game times were actually shorter than modern games due to the slower pace of play and lack of commercial breaks. This era proved that making baseball more strategic was code for making it more boring than watching paint dry on a rainy day. The absence of offensive fireworks created a game that required patience from fans and precision from players. Fans were so bored they started caring more about the hot dog vendors than the actual game. Something had to change, and change was coming whether baseball was ready or not. The live ball era. After nearly 2 decades of baseball-induced narcolepsy, someone finally asked the revolutionary question: what if baseball was actually fun to watch? Attendance was dropping, and people were finding other ways to spend their afternoons that didn't involve watching grown men bunt for 3 hours. MLB's solution was to make bright, fresh balls fly out like rockets and ban all the weird stuff pitchers were doing to make hitting impossible. The league implemented new rules after 1919 that completely changed how the game was played. They banned pitchers from doctoring the ball with spit, mud, or emery, which had been common practice to manipulate the ball's movement. They also required teams to replace baseballs at the first sign of wear instead of using the same beat-up ball for entire games. Suddenly, baseballs flew out of stadiums like they had been shot from cannons. The new baseballs stayed brighter and harder throughout games, making them much easier to hit for distance. Home runs more than doubled league-wide after 1920. Babe Ruth became the human embodiment of America's new philosophy: go big or go home. Ruth was initially a pitcher, but transformed into the face of this new era when he was traded to the New York Yankees in 1920. Ruth didn't just hit home runs, he demolished them and ate hot dogs like it was training for a competitive eating contest. His legendary eating habits became as famous as his baseball skills. The man consumed vast quantities of hot dogs and other food, contributing to his larger-than-life image both on and off the field. His lifestyle and personality made him baseball's first true superstar. The man hit 54 home runs in 1920, which was nearly triple what the second-place guy managed. To put this into perspective, imagine being that much better than everyone else at anything. Ruth's 54 home runs eclipsed every other batter in the league by a significant margin, completely redefining what was possible in baseball. This dramatic shift in offensive production transformed baseball into a game centered on power hitting and individual achievement. Lou Gehrig was so reliable that Swiss watchmakers probably studied his consistency. Playing 2,130 consecutive games like missing work was a foreign concept. His record-breaking streak became a testament to his dedication and physical ability. Gehrig's unwavering presence in the lineup, combined with his exceptional hitting ability, made him a cornerstone of the Yankees' dominance during during this era. Meanwhile, everyone conveniently forgot that black players existed, despite the fact that they were obviously playing better baseball in their own leagues. The Negro Leagues thrived with exceptionally talented players who were denied the opportunity to compete in the major leagues due to racial discrimination. This exclusion highlighted a serious moral failing within the sport, as the best players weren't always given a chance to showcase their skills. Baseball had successfully transformed from a strategic chess match into a home run hitting contest, proving that Americans preferred explosions over strategy. The live ball era created amazing baseball and made the game much more exciting for fans. But there was one tiny problem that everyone kept pretending didn't exist: the integration era. The best players in America weren't allowed to play, and the Negro Leagues had been showcasing incredible talent for decades, while MLB pretended they didn't exist. MLB's solution was to finally let Jackie Robinson prove what everyone with eyes already knew. Talent doesn't care about race. Branch Rickey, the Brooklyn Dodgers general manager, signed Robinson to a minor league contract in 1945 and brought him to the majors in 1947. Rickey's motivations were complex, driven by a combination of moral conviction and a shrewd understanding of the business of baseball. He recognized that integrating the game was not only the right thing to do, but also a strategic move that could improve the Dodgers' competitiveness. Robinson broke the color barrier on April 15, 1947, while dealing with more hate mail than a tax collector during audit season. The volume of hate mail was so significant that the Dodgers had to intercept and filter it to protect Robinson and his family. Death threats and racial slurs arrived constantly, creating a hostile environment that would have broken most people. Despite this relentless abuse, Robinson persevered, demonstrating remarkable courage and an unwavering commitment to his craft. Rickey became a civil rights icon by pairing moral conviction with baseball savvy. Rickey saw Robinson's potential to withstand the inevitable abuse and pave the way for other black players. The thing is, Rickey understood that adding talented players would make his team better, regardless of what color they were. His decision combined moral leadership with practical baseball sense. Some players literally threatened to quit rather than play alongside black teammates. The resistance highlighted the deep-seated racism within the sport and the challenges Robinson faced from his own colleagues. These threats underscored the need for strong leadership to overcome the prejudice that existed throughout baseball. Robinson wasn't just breaking barriers, he was doing it while playing better baseball than most of the people complaining about his presence. His ability to perform at a high level despite the hostility he encountered was a testament to his character and skill. Robinson won Rookie of the Year in 1947 and went on to have a Hall of Fame career while facing constant pressure and scrutiny. Larry Doby, Satchel Paige, and Roy Campanella followed, proving that integration wasn't just morally right, it made the game significantly better. Larry Doby debuted with the Cleveland Indians on July 5, 1947, just months after Robinson. By 1951, the number of black and Latin players in the league had grown to 20, demonstrating the growing acceptance of integration within baseball. By 1959, every team had signed at least one black player, mostly because winning games turned out to be more important than maintaining stupid traditions. This widespread integration marked a significant shift in the sport's demographics and culture. The increasing presence of black players enriched the game and helped to dismantle the barriers of segregation. Baseball had finally figured out that excluding great players for dumb reasons was like refusing money because you didn't like the color of the bills. But success created a new problem that nobody saw coming: the expansion era. Post-war economic growth and television coverage drove demand for baseball everywhere, so naturally, MLB decided to solve this success by watering down the talent pool like a cheap cocktail. Baseball was thriving with great players and exciting games, but apparently having 16 teams was too simple for a sport that loved complicating things. The solution was to spread teams across the country like a franchise restaurant, diluting the talent until some teams looked like they were playing a completely different sport. The expansion era began in earnest in 1961 when MLB added the Los Angeles Angels and a new Washington Senators team, then followed up in 1962 by adding the Houston Colt 45s and New York Mets to the National League. The existing player pool was spread across more teams, which meant the overall quality of play suffered as the best players were no longer concentrated on a smaller number of teams. The 1962 Mets became famous for losing 120 games in their first season, setting the worst modern record for futility that perfectly captured the challenges of expansion. The Colt 45s weren't much better, struggling to find their footing in a league that suddenly had too many teams chasing too few quality players. The American League created the designated hitter rule in 1973 because their pitchers couldn't hit a beach ball with a tennis racket, proving that some problems require admitting defeat. This rule allowed teams to substitute a hitter for the pitcher, with the aim of increasing offensive output and making the game more exciting. The National League refused to adopt this change, creating a split in baseball strategy that continues today. Geographic expansion was driven by population shifts and the advent of air travel, which made a 154-game schedule across the country possible. Cities that had never hosted Major League Baseball suddenly found themselves with franchises, though not all of these moves were successful. Meanwhile, Hank Aaron was chasing Babe Ruth's home run record while receiving death threats from people who clearly had way too much free time and not enough hobbies. Aaron's pursuit of Ruth's mark was marred by intense racial prejudice, including hate mail, that highlighted the racial tensions that still existed in baseball and American society. His achievement was overshadowed by the hatred he endured from fans who couldn't accept a black player breaking a white legend's record. The strike zone got redesigned in 1963, favoring pitchers and creating a brief return to the days when hitting was considered an advanced skill. This rule change, combined with the diluted talent pool, made offensive production more difficult and changed the dynamics of the game significantly. New teams like the Seattle Pilots existed for exactly one season, proving that expansion wasn't always a well-thought-out process. The Pilots were plagued by financial problems and logistical challenges before being sold and relocated to Milwaukee as the Brewers after just 1 year. Baseball had successfully turned a concentrated talent pool into a nationwide network of varying quality, like turning a gourmet restaurant into a food court. But while teams were spreading everywhere, the players making it all possible were still being treated like they had no choice in where they worked. The free agency era. The reserve clause had been in place since 1879, creating a system where once a player signed with a team, they were obligated to play for that team unless traded or released. This severely limited their freedom and bargaining power, treating players more like property than professionals. After Curt Flood challenged the reserve clause in 1970 and arbitration in 1975 upheld a deal, players won true free agency by 1976. Flood, a Cardinal center fielder, refused a trade to the Phillies, and with the support of Marvin Miller and the Players Association, argued the reserve clause was an antitrust violation. Although the courts initially upheld the reserve system, the case was ultimately settled through an arbitration system established by the collective bargaining agreement. Suddenly, players could negotiate their worth, and owners acted like the world was ending because they had to pay market rates for elite talent. The advent of free agency dramatically reshaped baseball's financial landscape. Players could finally negotiate their worth, leading to a substantial increase in salaries that made owners question everything they thought they knew about running a baseball team. Nolan Ryan became the first million-dollar player in 1979, signing a $4.5 million four-year deal with the Houston Astros that made owners everywhere question their life choices. This landmark deal demonstrated the rising market value of talent and the financial rewards now available to top players. Other stars like Dave Winfield also secured lucrative seven-figure contracts in the years that followed. George Steinbrenner started buying championships like groceries, proving that unlimited spending could indeed purchase success in professional sports. The New York Yankees owner became synonymous with aggressive spending during the free agency era. His willingness to invest heavily in free agents, such as Reggie Jackson, helped the Yankees become a dominant force in the late 1970s and early 1980s. This demonstrated a direct correlation between financial investment and on-field success. The average salary increased 6 times from what it was in 1966, which sounds impressive until you realize how ridiculously underpaid players had been. Free agency created actual competition for player services, leading to the shocking discovery that talent was worth paying for. The 1980s saw 9 different teams win the World Series, which was a direct result of the increased player freedoms and the changing structure of the game. The 1994 strike made fans angrier than parents at a Little League game, canceling the World Series and proving that labor disputes could kill even America's pastime. The strike began on August 12, 1994, and lasted until April 2, 1995. It resulted in the cancellation of the World Series for the first time since 1904, a devastating blow to the sport. Baseball had finally entered the modern economy, where skilled workers could actually negotiate their compensation instead of accepting whatever scraps owners threw their way. But this new economic freedom had created a serious problem that would require some very creative solutions. The steroid era. High salaries meant teams needed every possible advantage to justify their investments, and some players found those advantages in a pharmacy. Baseball had a serious image problem after canceling the World Series, and desperate times called for measures that nobody wanted to examine too closely. With attendance and revenue plummeting, MLB sought a quick fix that would bring fans back to the stadiums. The resulting offensive explosion initially seemed to be the answer, drawing fans back with the promise of more home runs and exciting plays. The solution was to look the other way while players transformed into human action figures, and baseball started flying out of stadiums like they were launched from rocket ships. MLB's initial response to growing steroid concerns was to implement survey testing in 2003, which lacked any real consequences for players who tested positive. This allowed the problem to continue growing while the league appeared to be taking action. In 1998, McGuire's 70, and Sosa's 66 turned baseball into a nightly ratings juggernaut until the steroid cloud burst. The home run chase between these two players became a national obsession, with fans captivated by the spectacle of challenging Roger Maris's single-season home run record. This chase generated massive media attention and boosted attendance figures, temporarily masking the underlying issue of widespread steroid use. League-wide home runs peaked at record highs in the late 1990s as offensive numbers reached unprecedented levels. Barry Bonds broke that record with 73 home runs in 2001, while his head grew approximately 3 hat sizes and his personality became even less charming. Bonds was already under suspicion when he achieved this feat, and his physical transformation was difficult to ignore. The focus on home runs and offensive statistics continued to overshadow ethical concerns, with Bonds becoming the face of an era increasingly defined by controversy. Everyone pretended not to notice that players who used to look like accountants now resembled professional wrestlers who had been inflated with a bicycle pump. The visual transformation of players during this era was striking, with many exhibiting significant increases in muscle mass and power. These physical changes were a key indicator of steroid use, contributing to the public's growing skepticism about the legitimacy of the performances they were witnessing. The Mitchell report eventually named 89 players in a steroid investigation, proving that baseball's drug testing program had been about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. The report, released in 2007, provided a comprehensive investigation into steroid use in MLB, including stars like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. The report detailed the widespread nature of steroid use, exposing the league's failure to adequately address the problem. MLB implemented mandatory drug testing with actual suspensions in 2005, which was like installing smoke detectors after the house had already burned down twice. Baseball had successfully traded its integrity for entertainment value, creating the most exciting and ethically questionable era in sports history. But with steroids exposed and banned, teams faced a new challenge finding competitive advantages through legal means: the Moneyball era. The answer came from an unexpected source: statisticians with calculators and a revolutionary idea that math might actually be useful in sports. The solution was to let statisticians run the show, turning baseball into a math competition where front offices filled with people who had never played professional baseball but could calculate advanced metrics in their sleep. By 2007, almost every team was invested in analytics, demonstrating the widespread impact of this new approach. Teams started hiring mathematicians and computer scientists instead of just former players and scouts. Billy Beane became a hero for prioritizing on-base percentage over batting average, a move that enabled Oakland to make the playoffs on a shoestring budget. The Oakland Athletics general manager focused on on-base percentage and slugging percentage over traditional metrics like batting average, RBIs, and stolen bases. This strategy aimed to identify undervalued players, leading to a more efficient use of resources and allowing the A's to compete with wealthier teams. Despite having a significantly lower payroll than many other teams, the A's were able to compete with and even outperform wealthier franchises. Teams started caring more about on-base percentage and slugging percentage than whether players looked cool or had good clubhouse chemistry. The core of the Moneyball strategy involved identifying players whose skills were undervalued by traditional scouting methods. Teams focused on metrics like OBP and SLG, believing they were more predictive of offensive success than batting average. This allowed teams to find players who could get on base and avoid outs, even if they weren't considered stars by traditional standards. Launch angles became more important than batting stances, and players started swinging like they were trying to solve geometry problems. Launch angle optimization became a key element as hitters and coaches sought to maximize the distance and effectiveness of their hits. Players adjusted their swing mechanics and approach at the plate to hit the ball at an optimal angle, aiming to generate more home runs and extra base hits. This involved analyzing data on exit velocity, launch angle, and other factors to determine the best way to hit the ball for maximum impact. The infield shift exploded league-wide, which basically meant putting fielders where hitters actually hit the ball. This concept took 150 years to discover. Teams used data to determine where hitters were most likely to hit the ball and positioned their fielders accordingly. The shift was particularly effective against left-handed hitters, who often pulled the ball to the right side of the infield. Old-school managers had to pretend they understood sabermetrics, while secretly wondering what happened to the good old days of managing by gut feeling. Traditional scouts often resisted the analytics revolution, as they were accustomed to relying on their own observations and subjective evaluations of players. Some scouts felt that the analytics approach overlooked important aspects like character and work ethic. Strikeouts increased dramatically because swinging for optimal launch angles often meant missing the ball entirely, creating a new type of boring baseball. Baseball had successfully transformed from a steroid-fueled power contest into a spreadsheet competition, proving that nerds could indeed get revenge. But mathematical precision had created an unexpected problem that nobody saw coming: the modern era. Analytics had optimized the fun out of baseball, creating a new crisis: games that were mathematically perfect, but fans complained dragged past 3 hours between analytics delays. The Moneyball era had solved the talent evaluation problem but created a bigger issue: games routinely stretched beyond 3 hours, with players standing around while analytics departments calculated the optimal strategy for every single pitch. MLB's solution was to implement more rule changes than a homeowners association, desperately trying to make the game exciting without admitting they had broken it. The league introduced so many modifications that keeping track of them required a spreadsheet. They added pitch timers, banned defensive shifts, enlarged the bases, and changed the strike zone multiple times. Each rule change was designed to fix problems created by previous rule changes. The 2023 rule changes included pitch timers, giving pitchers 15 seconds between pitches with no runners on base, and 20 seconds with runners on base, shift bands, and bigger bases, basically admitting that the previous 20 years of optimization had been a mistake. The shift ban required teams to keep 2 infielders on each side of second base. The bases grew from 15 inches square to 18 inches square. These changes directly contradicted the analytical approach that had dominated baseball for decades. Average game time dropped from 3 hours and 10 minutes to 2 hours and 42 minutes after the 2023 changes, proving that baseball could indeed be saved from itself. In 2024, games reached their shortest average time since 1981. The pitch timer alone cut approximately 24 minutes from the average game time, demonstrating that artificial urgency could restore natural pacing. Players now celebrate regular season home runs like they've won the World Series, because apparently every statistical achievement deserves a choreographed dance routine. Modern players create elaborate celebrations for routine accomplishments that would have been considered normal decades ago. These celebrations often involve multiple teammates and choreographed movements that take longer than some at-bats. Shohei Ohtani became the face of modern baseball by doing what players did 100 years ago: pitching and hitting, which was somehow revolutionary again. Ohtani's two-way ability captivated fans worldwide and brought millions of new viewers to the sport. His presence demonstrated that individual excellence could still generate excitement in an era dominated by team analytics and specialized roles. Acuña's 40-70 club and Ohtani's 50-50 season show modern baseball still craves spectacular feats. Acuña hit 40 home runs and stole 70 bases in 2023, while Ohtani achieved 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases in 2024. These accomplishments required inventing new statistical categories because the sport had become obsessed with creating exclusive achievement clubs. International players became superstars, proving that baseball's future might depend on talent from countries that actually still enjoy playing the game. Players like Ohtani, Acuña, and Juan Soto became the highest-paid athletes in the sport, while bringing different playing styles and cultural perspectives that American fans found refreshing. Baseball had entered its existential crisis phase, where every solution created new problems and the sport spent more time fixing itself than actually being played. The pattern had become predictable: identify problem, create solution, discover new problem, repeat endlessly. After more than a century of fixing problems, baseball has proven that the road to improvement is paved with unintended consequences. Each era created new issues while solving old ones. The dead ball era was too boring, so they made hitting easier. Then hitting became too easy, so they banned steroids. Then analytics made games too long, so they added pitch timers. The real lesson here is that baseball's greatest strength has always been its ability to create new problems while solving old ones. From dead balls to pitch clocks, baseball's history shows that every fix carries its own wild side effects. Like and subscribe for 1,000 years of luck. Until next time.